All right, and welcome back to Game 2 of the semifinals of the 2019 Magic the Gathering Old School World Championships held at Magic Fest Las Vegas in August of that year. I'm here again with my dear friend Sam Tang. I'm Brian Weissman, and we are about to do commentary for a game that is coming on the heels of quite a barn burner.
It was a crazy Game 1 in the semifinals round of the top 8. We're looking at Game 2 of the semifinals. We just finished our deck tech. I think we just resolved mulligans. Eric went first, and you were about to lead, and kind of what's kind of going through your mind right now. Set us up. Right?
Yeah, basically, if memory serves me correctly, Eric unfortunately mulliganed twice.
Oh, no.
Going into Game 2, and I did not have to mulligan at all.
Okay.
And in this format, it's so hard to recover from just being short cards.
Yeah.
And so many of the games fundamentally are decided by ancestral recall also. And so if you, well, he redrew twice trying to hit it. But now he's down to a 5-card starting hand, further away from ancestral recall than he would be, right? He has to dig. He's essentially 2 cards further away from it on average because of starting with a 5-card hand. And that's a really bad situation to be in. We're going first against a control player who is sideboarded against you and has an 8-card hand, essentially. You're in real trouble.
Yeah.
On top of that, he doesn't even have a turn 1 Vice to punish me for going second. So it's a bit of a wing and a prayer. I think we haven't seen his hand yet, but I'm thinking fist pump, honestly, to answer your question from before. I'm thinking hell yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes. I mean, I have mulliganed more than my fair share in this event. I had mulliganed probably 6 or 7 times across the whole tournament at that point. I'm mulliganing against Eric in the first game. So we're getting a little bit of symmetry. And honestly, his deck mulligans extremely well. It has all that card draw, and it shouldn't mulligan very often. It's designed brilliantly by a Hall of Fame pro, which means it has exactly as much mana as it needs. Perfect mana. And it should have keepable hands a sizable majority of the time. It's not trying to get lucky or anything like that. So it's extremely unlucky for Eric to have mulliganed twice, and obviously very favorable for me. And this draw in my hand, which is already very good, is about to get a hell of a lot better based on what's about to happen. So let's go from there. I lead with Library of Alexandria triumphantly and confidently into the factory. Now, sometimes in some games I'd actually be reluctant to do that. The library is so potent and so powerful that you can sometimes just wait around and bait. Lead with precious lands first, like a Tundra or something. Offer up a Tundra to the strip mine and see if they take the bait. And then you play library. And in a lot of games, I would have actually done that here. Except that Eric is playing with 4 Vices and Ankh and Wheel and Twister. He's also mulliganed twice.
Right.
Which means that the range of things that he can have short of strip mine to beat this library are reduced dramatically. He hasn't played a Vice on turn 1, so at a bare minimum, I'm going to be able to cantrip off it and set him back a turn after he's double mulliganed, and I'm going to be up 4 cards. Thanks to the extra card from the library, it's like becoming insurmountable. So even if he has the strip mine to kill the library, it's honestly not that big of a deal. So I'm happy to play at turn 1.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than waiting around. And so we will see what happens. You can see me just staring at him. I'm just reading him to see where his eyes go, waiting for that telltale sign of the eyes darting to the battlefield. By the way, if you play old school, it is the ultimate tell. The ultimate tell that I've used to great effect over the years to get people just totally rattled. They go, what the hell, dude? They look around behind them and they go, how on earth do you know I drew another strip mine? And I'd go, because your eyes betray you. You can't help it. That is the ultimate tell in old school format. If you've played in Legacy, where Wasteland is really common, also, I'm sure you've seen it countless times, if you look at your opponent when they draw a card. But so many of these people that are just intent on going over and over again, and you know exactly what I'm describing.
Just shuffling, yeah.
This weird spastic shuffling thing that so many people do that just drives me nuts. Why are you doing that?
Don't spend your cognitive cycles shuffling cards. Just focus on the game. Focus on your opponent.
Focus on your... Why are you shuffling your hand? Does it make your hand magically change? Does reordering it make it somehow more powerful? It doesn't make any sense. It's this weird nervous habit that I don't know where it started. People started doing it in the Pro Tour, I guess. And then people watched people in the Pro Tour do it, and they started copying it. And now it's just everywhere in constructed Magic. People spend their entire turn just frantically shuffling their own hand like a maniac.
It's like bouncing your leg or something. It's a bad habit. If you want to stay focused on the game, you want to keep yourself composed, you don't need to burn those extra calories doing that.
Right, and more importantly, your eyes are not on the important stuff that's happening. If you're lucky enough to be playing live competitive Magic, if you're not studying your opponent on their turn the whole time, with your hand face down on the table, basically, you're doing it wrong. It's just that simple. You're doing it wrong because human beings are incredibly emotive with their behaviors. They can't help but betray what's going on in their minds. Most people just do it automatically without a thought. It is what I call algorithmic behavior. They just instinctively do things. And one of those things, one of the most salient things you will ever see in this format is draw a strip mine, eyes dart to the lands of the opponent 100% of the time. It's such an insane tell. It's laughable how easy it is to predict.
Right.
I played a match against Stephen Menendian that Daniel Chang recorded some years ago, where he was playing, I think it was like Grixis Atog, actually. I think it was Grixis Atog, or maybe it was a slightly different version of his counterburn deck, and I was playing the deck. And we're playing, and I'm just reading what Stephen has in his hand multiple times during the game. I tell him he drew a shatter. I tell him he has a shatter in his hand. I tell him that when he draws a City of Brass. I'm like, you drew a City of Brass. He's like, how do you know? And
of course, he
betrayed like strip mines the whole game and stuff. Even really, really good players just can't help themselves but fall into these behavioral patterns. If you're spinning your hand and staring at it as you fan it back and forth, you're missing all of that information. It's just none of it, you can't get any of it. Mm-hmm. And you're leaving so much on the table as a player. Mm-hmm. Put your damn hand on the ground, on the table, and study. Watch your opponent. So in this case, I'm watching Eric like a hawk. I'm waiting to see if he draws strip mine, because I'll know if he does it. He's not going to be able to hide it, even as experienced as he is. So I'm watching him, and of course, I see him dejectedly play a bad lance and cast a Ankh Mishra. And I'm just like, oh boy,
we're off to the races.
We're off to the races. The library is free. I don't care about the Ankh. And look at my hand. I see if I can fan it out here. So I draw a card, pick up Swords to Plowshares, and we can see my hand right there. Mostly Tundra, Regrowth, Swords to Plowshares, Divine Offering, Jam de Tome, Soul Ring also. God, what an insane hand. Disenchant also, just in case I needed that. And all Erica's is like 2 cards and an Ankh. When it rains, it pours, right? It does feel like a little bit of karmic redemption after game 1.
You had to fight for everything.
Think about how crazy that game was. I mind twisted his whole hand, leaving him with Time Walk, and he draws Time Walk into Time Twister. Later on in that round, he has no cards in hand, and I have a choice to either recall for a counterspell to shore up my position, or just give him literally 1 draw step to make sure I lock the game up. And he top decks Demonic Tutor into Wheel.
And it's just like the cards giveth and the cards taketh.
Exactly. So this game, which you can sort of see defined by Eric's body posture right now, is going decidedly in the other direction. Let's resume. All right, so I draw here, pick up another Tundra, just perfect land too, basically, short of getting a city. So I do have to take 2 under the Ankh, and now the question is, I've got 8 cards in hand. I can cast one of those Divine Offerings. I can cast one of the Disenchants to just kill the Ankh off at the end of my turn. Or I've got 8 cards in hand right now. Mm-hmm. I also can just discard and pass the turn with the intention of either casting Divine Offering or Disenchant at the end of the turn, or drawing an extra card with the library. And this is kind of a tough choice, actually. I'd be curious to know what you think you would do here.
I would draw a card off of the library, because right now the mini game, I feel like the sub game right now is the library sub game. That's kind of what my gut feeling is, because then you continue to draw value off of it. You know, no pun intended. You keep getting value out of the library, and then you basically say to Eric, "I'm gonna call your bluff on your mulligan down to 5, and you're playing an Ankh, and you know I'm gonna call your bluff that your hand is anemic." And I'm going to keep pulling away with library. So you're just kind of reminding him that he needs to answer library. And let's say he finds a way and he does. You're like, okay, great. Well, I got a full grip. I'm going to go switch over to dealing with the Ankhs, dealing with other things, because your life totals are full. I just felt like it was like another way to maybe distract him and also apply pressure.
So your play here, I have 9 cards in hand right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So is it play Soul Ring, pass, discard, and then tap and draw with library again? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I opt to go a different route. Mm-hmm. And basically, I figured that discarding a card into the graveyard of the 8 is kind of like the same as drawing with the library, only in reverse, right? But I'm going to save a resource and I'm going to develop more instead. I have to always assume that my opponent has worst case scenario next turn.
Okay.
If worst case scenario is wheel or twister, what position do I want to be in the most when that happens? That position is with Soul Ring in play,
right,
and the ability to Divine Offering the Ankh before I have to discard.
Exactly.
So I take that play. I decide to do that, even though that means I have to tap the library right now. So that's what you'll see me do here.
Nice little over-the-shoulder action to make sure we see that Soul Ring.
Yep.
Okay. Soul Ring now on the battlefield.
Oh, I guess I only had, I had 9 before I played the Tundra, so I had 8 after that. So I would not have had to discard in your scenario.
Okay.
If I had gone and just cast the Soul Ring and tap and draw library. But I decide that, again, the way that I play these formats, the reason why the results are so consistent is that I always account for the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. I always give my opponent credit for something. I just assume that they're going to have it and play accordingly. Assuming that Eric's next card is Volcanic Island Time Twister, what do I want to look like? Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to win all the situations when he doesn't have that anyway, probably.
Correct.
And I'll lose some of the ones where he has exactly that if I don't prepare for it.
Right.
So that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
So I'm able to just pass here and see what happens. And I have the ability to Plowshare the Factory if he attacks, and I can kill off the Ankh at the end of the turn. I'll take a mana burn, but that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. So he takes 2. So we're going to see, did he have the worst? And instead he has just a second
Another Ankh. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, because that Volcanic Island came down. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
We're about to see.
It could be worst case scenario, right?
Here we
Exactly.
Go. Okay.
Boom.
Boom. One of the Ankhs.
So this takes me up to 19. It's a net game of 1 because this version of Old School is played with mana burn.
Right.
So you do have to take that into account. I'm at 19 currently, but I'm back up to 7 cards. I draw another disenchant. Mm-hmm. Eric looks at 2 cards in hand now, 2 to 7.
Yeah.
And we have the same mana.
Right. And you got library again.
We have 3 mana sources. Yep. I even have more mana than him.
Right.
So without hesitation, I throw down the Tundra. I'm not even considering disenchanting first. I feel I can definitely take the 2 damage.
Exactly.
Because now I have Counterspell online also.
Right.
Just to really make sure that unless he has the exact range of Wheel Twister Blast, I've got him stuck. Okay. So he plays an Ankh, another one. All right, so let's look at my hand here. And I've got 2 disenchants, Counterspell, Swords, double Jam-Day Tome, and Regrowth in hand currently. I could Counterspell the Ankh, actually, and just get the Counterspell out of my hand so that my mana's freed up to play a Jam-Day Tome, tap and draw library, which might be a direction to take the game. The thing is that I can't, clutching Counterspell, I can't really be sure that it's going to stop Wheel or Twister unless it's got a backer, basically. My strategy and the value of the Counterspell will change organically as the game evolves. Whether or not I have backers, what range is he likely to have? What do I need to stop? So I'm constantly reassessing, do I need this Counterspell in hand or not? Is it more important to develop? And then maybe he hits his range, like he draws a wheel and he goes Wheel of Fortune. And I go, all right. And then he discards the Red Blast because I didn't even care about countering it at that point because now I've developed the board even further that I'm prepared for Wheel. So the value of the Counterspell in hand does shift dynamically as the game unfolds. I might even consider countering here just for tempo and shifting to a different strategy where I don't even worry about blue mana being up. So do you think that I'll do that, or do you think I'll just let it happen and start cycling through those disenchants to kill off the Ankhs?
I think that you are already ahead in board, and I think you're also trying to value how behind is he, because he did Ankh.
It's crazy.
So
triple Ankhs.
Right.
How sick is that?
I feel like, again, his hand is perhaps a little bit anemic, and you're right. He isn't showing you anything worth countering, perhaps. And so I feel like you're just going to hold on to that counterspell for later.
Yeah, his body language, by the way, at this point is just total defeat.
Yeah.
He's got, you can't see it, but off to his right there, You'll see it from other angles. He has a baseball game going on. And I notice in the second game, he's paying a lot more attention to the baseball game.
Oh, no.
If you're staring with 70% of your attention at a baseball game when you're playing in the semifinals of a tournament, you're probably not happy with how things are going.
Oh, no.
So Eric plays this second Ankh, and I think I just ice it with a disenchant. I decide, you know what? I don't think he's got his range, anything close to his range. His body language does not indicate that.
Yeah.
He's just basically praying for the top of his deck, which makes that counterspell extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And you see me nod and actually do a tell. That's another tell. When someone nods and flips a card to the front of their hand, invariably they have the answer in hand. Just expect it.
Okay. There's another.
Tosses another one.
There's another.
We get a strange zoom in.
Quick zoom in. Want to
cycle back up to 7 in hand.
Just want to make sure everyone's untapping. Okay.
Oh, look at that.
Okay. Wow.
So double tone. Remember I talked about that when we were talking about sideboard.
Right.
Imagine I don't draw the disenchants this game. It's not impossible at all. How incredibly bad are those tomes when I have to like play a land and take 6 damage?
Yeah.
Like it just, you can get so screwed if you load up your hand with JMD tomes if you're not careful. You need just the right number. 3 is probably too many for the matchup. And right there is my old customized Mind Twist. The only white bordered card in my deck at the time, actually, which I had. I think I told you before about the Julie Barrow altar story.
Right.
So there it is again. That's the art that I scribbled in my dorm room in 1994. Sat there and like diligently erased it with my little mechanical pencil and drew this Mind Twist, which then killed thousands of people. It went on to be very famous. So there's a shot of it right there. It's pretty cool. And I don't have black mana to cast it on Eric right now. So.
Okay, what do you think Eric needs right now?
You know, it's always the same 3 cards with this deck. You know them. Ancestral Recall, Wheel of Fortune, Time Twister.
Yeah.
It's just, it needs cards. It needs fuel. So he's in a position where he's facing an engine, an unheated engine, and he has nothing going on in his hand. So it's really just those 3 cards. There's no damage solution that wins here. He can screw around with the factory, but come on. I have 8 cards in my hand currently, essentially. What are the odds that factory does not get killed, right? What are the chances that it deals 2? So that's not even a plan. It's really just refill and hope for the best at this point. So that's what he's hoping for.
Okay, well, let's take a look.
We'll see where it goes. He's just looking there at 2 cards and an active library. Probably just contemplating, do I send in the factory? Would you attack with the factory?
I probably would not, because he's already going to be behind on mana, and then he has knockout, so he has to play more lands if he loses that land.
Yeah,
and why send it out when you would just run out strip mine? Okay, so we're drawing with library.
And then casting another spell at the end of the turn. So, yeah, just as an aside, if you're playing the Grixis Atog deck, and you have 4 mana in play, and it's wrong to attack with a Mishra's Factory, things have gone horribly
awry.
South.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
The fact that he's just like, you know what? If I attack with this and it dies, and then Brian has a strip mine afterward, then I'm down to 2 and I can't even time twist or wheel my way out of this mess. It's like impossible at that point. So of course he doesn't attack with the factory.
Yeah, usually when you ask the question, who's the aggro here, it's Grixis. And if you're not answering that at this stage, there's, the game plan
it's
is
super
concept.
bleak. So the question is, I'm tapping mana here at the end of the turn. This is actually a strange play.
Okay.
I know why I did it, actually. This is another thing of like ranges here. So I have, right now in my hand, Disenchant, which we saw before. I also have Blue Elemental Blast. And I can kill the Ankh at the end of the turn, and I can use 2 Tundras to do that, which kills the Ankh. However, it also means that I can't Blue Blast. And I have a Soul Ring in play also. The obvious play is tap, it's the end of his turn. The obvious play is tap 2 Tundras and disenchant the Ankh Mishra, right? Except that he has 2 blue untapped. He might run Mana Drain. Sometimes this deck does run Mana Drain, although I don't think that Eric's version does. So sometimes they just might have Mana Drain. But I expect something else potentially, like maybe even something weirder, like a Fork or something. And I think in my mind, Mana Drain is a consideration, also Fork. And he's got 3 red mana, and Fork is like an interesting card to bring in from a sideboard. I don't know Eric's sideboard, of course. It's kind of an interesting interactive card where you can use your opponent's disenchants and stuff against them to kill their tomes and stuff by forking. It's not a crazy range, honestly. So I think about this for a while, and I realized that because he could have a red effect here that might screw me up, like he kills the Soul Ring and I get really unlucky, and he draws a Strip Mine and kills he kills the library, and now I'm stuck on like 2 land. I'm stuck on 2 land because I let him fork my own disenchant. I decide that I actually want to just use the Soul Ring for mana, leaving that Tundra untapped just for that tiny range of outcome. Because again, always be thinking, what could kill me?
Right.
I'm massively ahead. That's obvious, but I could actually lose. Notice my hand has no more mana in it.
Right.
So I make this play just in case he has 4 it.
Opt to take the mana burn.
Yeah, I take 1 point of mana burn. I'm like, I can spare it. He didn't even attack me with a factory.
Right.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
The only way I lose is some weird ass super RNG fluke, but always account for it. There's 7 in hand here. I'm thinking probably about whether or not to draw before I go to my draw step.
And that's 3 onks down.
Yeah, all the onks are dead. Like at this point, what does he even do? So I do not draw at the library.
I think Eric has like 2 cards in hand right now.
Oh my goodness!
Wow, Ivory Tower, and you drew Ivory Tower off of that draw.
Yeah,
wow.
That was clearly my 8th card right there.
Wow.
So I draw Ivory Tower now. Eric has no shatters.
And you have a full grip,
and a library out of Alexandria.
Wow, that's a lot of life.
It's going to be a lot of life really, really fast. Eric's going to take another look at the game, I think. To his right, the baseball game got even more interesting.
Okay, Fireball. A lightning bolt or
yeah, he picked up a lightning bolt. So you saw his hand right there. It looks like Mox Sapphire, lightning bolt, red elemental blast. So he did bring in at least 1 blast, and he was drawing for that range, hoping to just protect a wheel or a twister.
Yeah.
So end of Eric's turn, all he can do is pass it back to me. I draw a card at the end of the turn, untap, gain 4.
Wow. Yeah, pulling ahead.
Totally.
The train is pulling away from the station.
And you'll notice just the foresight again. I took a point of mana burn there, but I have more sources of life gain in the deck now, a lot more.
Right.
I have 3 Divine Offering instead of 1.
Right.
I also have the Ivory Tower in there.
Right.
And I have Blue Elemental Blast, which in a way is a way to essentially gain life.
Right.
I'd be counterspelling lightning bolts that I normally would never touch.
Correct.
So I have all this extra life gain in the deck. That makes that life point considerably less consequential.
Right.
It's like maybe a third more dangerous than it used to be. And with that in mind, that makes just the random contingency of the Tundra staying untapped way, way more important and more correct. The kind of thing that an AI might never figure out. Playing Magic for a very long time. Strip Mine comes down, and I don't even take 2 from it. I mean, God, what a gross luxury.
Well, you've done the work. There's 3
onks
in the graveyard.
Okay, so the question is, I'm going to ask you, Sam, to strip mine or not to strip mine here? What would you do, and why?
Well, he's behind on cards. He hasn't played any more lands. He's not using those lands. And then we've already talked about if he does have land or he does have outs, he's 100% going to be using that mana to a Time Twister or Wheel. So you definitely have to blow up land. Like at this point, you have to do it.
I completely agree. Now the question is, which one?
I would either go for the Tropical Island or the City of Brass.
You mean the Volcanic Island?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Easily mistaken from this distance.
Yeah, the Volcanic Island.
Yeah, I think that basically they're functionally the same.
Right.
You know, I win deterministically, so his life, chipping away at his life total really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the city is just straight up better than the Volcanic Island in that case.
Yep.
He's not running Serendip Jin or something.
Yeah.
Where you want him to take 3 damage. Actually, I mean, that card's actually played in some counterburn decks. Menendian played with Serendip Jin. Which is awesome.
I mean, did it do well for Steve?
I imagine if he played it, it did very well.
It did well.
I mean, it's hard to handle.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell? I got a Psy Blast. That thing has 6 health. Shit. And it hits for 5.
Yeah.
It's a big creature, right?
Yeah.
And you're like throwing away a Badlands or, you know, like a mountain or 2 to hit him for 5. That's a good trade. So I think the card's probably underplayed, honestly, in decks like this. I don't expect Eric to have a Serendip Jin randomly in his Grixis Atog deck.
Right.
That would be a little bit bizarre. So in that case, the city is the obvious choice. And of course, that's exactly what I did. After contemplating my majesty for a while, my hand is huge.
Yeah, I mean, you've bought yourself this time. You should use the time to think about things. Thinking. Okay, yeah, here we go. Boom.
Yep. And this is, of course, done to reduce his range of ways to claw his way out of this.
Yep.
I mean, I got to figure he probably has a red blast in his hand. Just what else would he have at this point?
Yeah. Okay.
He does have a bolt.
Bolt 2.
It's like negative damage.
Okay.
Because it's a turn spent drawing something and I gain 4.
Okay.
All right, and I just chuck a tome in the graveyard because the library's already won the game, basically.
Yep. Oh.
And Eric rips Gloom.
Gloom. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
We have Mox.
So he plays...
Okay.
And this is a very interesting interaction.
Gloom.
So he throws out Gloom.
Okay.
So it's interesting, Gloom's on the stack, right? And we know the last card in Eric's hand is Red Elemental Blast. So he plays the Gloom. Now the question is, do I counter? And if I do counter, does Eric care? Like what it really, there's so much tension over this card. It's a really interesting interaction because we know I have a counterspell in my hand. I may in fact have another one in my hand already, although I don't know. However, I have a library going and I'm already pretty deep in the deck, and instinctively I know a counterspell is due soon. And I have a maxim that I've repeated before. Do not have more counterspells in your hand than you can cast in any given turn at once, all on the same turn. And that means sometimes you just play counterspells for tempo just to get them out of your hand. I got to figure like he probably has a red blast, so I can't. It's not like I can counter and protect it anyway.
Right.
So if he does draw into Wheel or Twister, then I'm going to lose that battle anyway, whether or not I have a counterspell. But Gloom is an annoying as hell card.
Right.
It's super annoying. Seriously, like it's backbreaking because it just eats up so much of your mana, particularly if you want to do 2 white things in a turn. And I think I rationalize, I'm going to at least draw a card with the library to see what's going on. And then I may in fact counterspell Gloom. And we'll see if Eric responds to that.
Okay.
And it's interesting that I'm burning a counterspell here because I talk about how precious they are, right? How you stop certain cards with them. So I'm going to draw in response. And the strange multi-dimensional computer in my mind goes, okay, counterspell. It just tells me to do this.
Okay, and he lets it resolve.
Yep, and he lets it resolve. So that's interesting, right? Eric does not fight over it. He doesn't fight over it, and that's a perfect play. That is pro level play right there, 100%. Why do you think Eric doesn't fight over it?
I think that he needs to draw into an out and then use the red blast to then protect that out.
100% exactly. It's that. It's like when you cast a spell that you know isn't what we're really fighting over here and your opponent uses a counter to stop it, that's a win for you. We both know it.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it because I'm like in this awkward position where I have too much life and too much cards.
Right.
So it's like, it's not parity. So the question is, I'm back up to 7 here. Can I draw? So I just draw during upkeep with the library, or with the ivory tower stacked. Library resolves, I gain 4 life. Again, draw another card.
Underground Sea.
Underground Sea. You see me spin it for a second. Because you know I've got Mind Twist in my hand, right?
Yeah.
So I'm initially consider whether or not I want to Mind Twist Eric. He only has 1 card in hand here. Do I want to wait? See if he's going to bait something? Well, if that's a red blast, if that's my read, and I've been reading that for multiple turns because it's the only card that makes any sense, I'm way stronger if I get it out of his hand. Because it narrows the range of outs by so much. Daniel is going to spin over to take a look at my hand. Got Divine Offering in there. His hand is just so gnarly. Tome, Regrowth, Swords, just... Yeah, I suspect I just drew the City of Brass off the library. That makes the most sense. So this is going to be Mind Twist for 2.
Okay, there goes the red blast.
Actually, you know what? I think I Mind Twisted him for 1 on
And
purpose.
then took
Yeah, yeah. Again, because of the same reason. It's based. Yeah. Well,
Oh, and he just extends the hand. Okay.
And just like that, it's over.
Wow.
Eric draws 1 more card. The red elemental blast is gone.
Yeah.
It's just like, what can you even do, right?
Yeah.
what can you even do? I don't remember if he had 2 red mana untapped there. No, I guess he cast the Gloom, so he had just the Red Blast. I guess I'm thinking about my rationale for why I would have Mind Twisted him and taken a mana burn instead of Mind Twisting for 2. What would I possibly... Maybe I was planning on using the mana... No, it's possible I was planning on using the mana for something else, but then I must have thought differently.
Right.
And decided, like, I floated it.
Yeah.
You know, in retrospect, a mistake.
Yeah.
But hardly consequential at this point. I'm already in high double digits, like right around 20, I think.
Yeah.
Gaining 4 life a turn. My hand is impenetrable.
Right.
Basically, he's got no mana left. And the thing is, he and I both know that we've reached the stage of the game where even if he resolves Wheel or Twister through some miracle, it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
I just have too much life, and he's got to kill me early. He's already lost 3 onks. It's like there's nothing left.
Right.
What are you going to do? Just bolt me to death?
Yeah.
Right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
So he and I both know it, and Eric does the gracious thing and packs it in. And with that, on to the finals, Sam.
On to the finals. Here we go.
On to the finals. 2 consecutive 2-0s
Wow.
in the top 8. Very validating.
Yeah.
And to take down a Titan like this, to take down a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer, Eric Froelich, playing in Old School. What an honor, honestly.
Yeah. Eric absolutely made you work for game 1.
Did he ever? I knew
goodness.
that this was going to be an incredibly tough match. I was looking forward to it, hoping that it would actually happen.
Yeah.
Because I was keeping track of Eric throughout the event, and I could tell he was also doing well, of course.
Yeah.
And then when he's in the top 8, I'm thinking, man, there's a high chance he and I will play in the finals.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a finals that'll be.
Yeah.
But I wound up playing him in the semifinals, and that first game, I mean, I unequivocally think it's the best game I've ever played on camera.
Wow.
In my life.
And you know what? I also have to say, let's say you were just, I don't know, you were sloppy or just unlucky or just undisciplined or something happened that game 1. Right now, you'd be going into game 3, and that's a very precarious situation.
Totally.
You know, so being a player and understanding, hey, it's game 1, I cannot take things for granted. I understand what my opponent is playing. Every life point matters. Every resource matters. Then you go into a situation post-board where you, unfortunately your opponent mulls twice, or you have a really great draw, or you're just in a really good position, you turn 1 library, and then now you're like, great, I'm 2-0, I don't have to play game 3.
Exactly.
That's a huge difference.
God, what a relief not losing game 1. Exactly. Having to fight tooth and nail for that win, and I earned it for sure.
Yeah.
You heard my thought process the whole way through. Every single decision was consequential. Every single decision was calculated. They were not arbitrary. They all have a reason. So glad to get past Eric Froelich. Eric, if you're out there and you watch this match, or you watch this coverage, thank you very much for the match. Holy shit, man. What a battle that was. And I'm sorry we actually didn't even have all that great of a second game, because based on what happened in game 1, you certainly deserved an amazing game 2.
And it would have been really fun also to understand kind of like how Eric post-board plays it out. And so, yeah, no, it's never fun to mull down to 5.
Mull to 5 and then just get libraried to death. It's just a shitty way to have the second game go, unfortunately. And he was very gracious about it. I think almost in any situation, someone would have been, just about anyone would be tilted by that. Just, it's so frustrating in the semifinals of the Old School World Championship to have this opportunity and then to just mull to 5 and get libraried to death. I'd be mad, honestly. Yeah. And he didn't let it bother him. He was extremely gracious. Wonderful opponent. And we're on to the finals.
Here we go. We've been waiting for this for 4 years.
Yes, a couple more videos to go. The first will be a deck tech of the 2 decks in the finals. The deck once again versus a mirror match.
Wow.
Esper Mirror.
And I want to hear about what the differences are in the deck.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it. Those will be significant. It'll make an incredible conversation and subsequent videos. Sam, thank you so much again for joining me to cover this little piece of Old School history. And we are on to the finals. Can't wait.